What's up, guys? It's another episode of Codes Explained, and in this episode we're going to be talking about some of the finer points to trying to diagnose oxygen sensor problems based on the codes in the computer. Okay, so when it comes to codes associated with oxygen sensors, you're going to have a lot of different things come up. Basically, and I've got notes to make sure I keep this straight and that I don't forget anything too important, but if I do forget something, drop me a comment, ask any questions you want to. I respond to all of those, so I will try to answer everything as best I can. But basically, everything from code P0150 to P0175 are all going to have something to do with the oxygen sensors one way or another, but they do not all necessarily indicate a fault in the oxygen sensors or a need to replace one. So to get into understanding the definitions of these codes, first thing you're going to need to understand is each code that pertains specifically to an oxygen sensor is going to tell you which oxygen sensor it's talking about. And that's going to either say bank 1 sensor 1, bank 1 sensor 2, bank 2 sensor 1, or bank 2 sensor 2. Now, to know what that translates into, bank 1 always refers to either a system that only has one bank, such as a 4-cylinder, or a car that only has one primary and one secondary oxygen sensor, like the 3800 does. Or if it says bank 1 and bank 2, if you have both of those codes, then that's referring to a V-shaped engine that has oxygen sensors on both sides. So if that's the case, how do you know which one's what? Bank 1 is the side of the engine that cylinder 1 is on. So if you're not sure which cylinder is cylinder 1 on your engine, just look up the firing order and it will tell you where that is. Bank 2 is just simply the other side. Whatever side is not bank 1 is bank 2. Then you're going to have sensor 1 and sensor 2. Sensor 1 is always the pre-catalytic converter oxygen sensor. That's going to be the one on that side that is closest to the engine. Sensor 2 is always the post-catalytic converter oxygen sensor, or the one that is further away from the engine on that side. Now, not all cars, as I already mentioned, have 4 oxygen sensors just because they have V engines. Most, not all, but most straight engines like a 4-cylinder or a straight 6 will only have 1 oxygen sensor or 2, but in some rare cases I've even seen a 4-cylinder that has bank 1 and bank 2 upper oxygen sensors and lower. So even that 4-cylinder had 4 total oxygen sensors. So you'll need to look up on your particular application what your layout is. And I've even seen a lot of them, some engines will have 2 upstream sensors, so you have bank 1 and bank 2 sensor 1, but you won't have but 1 downstream sensor. So it's kind of confusing. That's something that you'll need to look up and know on your specific application, but that's kind of how to tell which one is what. Now, within those codes, you're going to have some different types of codes that say different things. I'm not going to go over every single code, but once again, I'm going to kind of hit the highlights so that when you look at the definition to your code, you have a better understanding of what that means. One example is going to be like P0161, which is going to say that it has a heater circuit malfunction. Now, what that's referring to is in 4-wire oxygen sensors. They not only have the actual oxygen sensor, but they have a heater built into them. That heater is there to warm the sensor up so that it works faster, because an oxygen sensor cannot work unless it's at a certain temperature. So that's what 4-wire sensors are, as opposed to the old single-wire sensors. So if you see a code that says, say for example, bank 1 sensor 1 oxygen sensor heater malfunction, that means the heater within that oxygen sensor has a short or is malfunctioning. 9 times out of 10, that means that oxygen sensor is bad and needs to be replaced, but could also mean that the wiring to or fuse for that oxygen sensor heater is bad. So that's a couple things to check there. Another common code you may see, P0153, which is oxygen sensor slow response. What that's saying is on the sensor side of the sensor, that it's not reacting as quickly as the computer expects it to react. This most of the time indicates a bad oxygen sensor unless something else is causing it to not register the changes quickly, such as if the car is running very rich or something like that. But most of the time that's going to mean the oxygen sensor in question is bad. One code that you want to look out for that does not mean this though, P0171, also 172. There are several others in there that are going to say system too lean or system too rich. Now these are considered oxygen sensor codes because they are directly related to what the computer is getting back from the oxygen sensor, but these do not mean the oxygen sensor is bad. If you have one that says stuck lean, that could indicate a bad oxygen sensor or that the engine is just stuck lean itself. But the lean condition codes like 171 most of the time actually refer to a specific lean condition, not the oxygen sensor itself being bad, just that the computer is seeing through the oxygen sensors that the engine is not running the way it's telling it to. Now, as far as diagnosing one of those codes go, I have a whole codes explained episode on the 171 code and the other related lean condition codes. So I will put a link for that down in the description, and you can check that out if you need to know more about that. But as far as that goes, that is the basic overview and how oxygen sensor codes work. These are some of the things that I've seen a lot of videos not necessarily cover. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, drop me a like on this video. Drop me a comment if you have any questions about this, or if there's another code or diagnostic piece of information you'd like me to do a video on. I use these to get ideas, so I will definitely look at that. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.